be seen as a failure in itself, right? Of course, businesses fail, but it should be seen more as a learning lesson, right? So I think the most important, and I'm not going into the details of what, why, of course, all that has to be analyzed before you start your next venture or take on more roles in your life. Um, as long as you are able to introspect and take away the learnings from that, right? The learnings are very important. Now, if you think there is nothing to learn, it was all circumstantial, you will again end up making the same mistake.
So how do you stay so humble? You've been an expert. You have seen so many decades.
See, it's all part of the journey. It's not something that I do consciously. Maybe earlier in life, I did make a conscious effect not to be affected by
Mhm.
a lot of noise or success.
Because, sir, why I was asking this question before this podcast, one of the founder he said like Amit Gupta, this man knows it all, microeconomic. Whether you ask anything global economy, he knows it all. But best part about him, it's not about how deep he knows everything. It's about he is so humble. He's so down to earth. He has zero arrogance or ego.
It's good to hear that. A lot of people on social media think the opposite because I don't hesitate in calling a spade a spade. So yeah, it's good to hear that about myself. And again, it's not a conscious choice or anything. Maybe that's I don't know. Maybe that's just I am credit to possibly my parents who've instilled those values. And I think to add to that for everybody else is not to get swayed by the noise. There will always be success. There will be failure. Noise will always be there around you if you are able to internalize everything and stay calm. Maybe my little spiritual bent of mind also comes into play. But having said that, it doesn't mean that one is always docile and doesn't give it back when needed. But as long as you don't hurt anybody and do it in a polite fashion, it's okay.
How has your global experience influenced your entrepreneurial and investment strategies?
A lot of it actually is influenced by my global experience. I've grown up in several countries from a very young age. I've lived in several countries, including in Africa, by the way, in Nigeria, where I grew up, and then later up being educated in England, doing business with several countries in the export trade. So now, since we are a very young country, on just 75, what is it, 77 years, I believe now, right? And most other economies are old countries in Europe or the US itself, right? So they have gone through this curve of development much earlier than us, right? Decades earlier than us. And naturally, they've deployed a lot of practices, best practices also in terms of how responsibility and commitment comes into when you're working and all. So it shapes up a lot of things and to also look at the world outside us, right? Had I not been exposed to a lot of global happenings very early in my life, I wouldn't be able to think or dream big, right? And also advise about scaling to people that think outside your comfort zones, right? You might be running a startup in Kerala, Maharashtra, or a Karnataka and all, but the world is much larger and also the world is much more open than you think. You think everybody is closed to their own way of working. No, the world is very much open to learning and discovering about, you know, just new ideas, new initiatives. And of course, technology has played a huge role in bridging the globalization gap. Now, today, if you and me open a website, we are not restricted by geography in terms of who will see that website, right? And
Right.
if you have this advantage of knowing certain nuances about that culture or that country, uh, you know, you can deploy those in execution also. So a lot of it, what I do, in fact, is shaped up by my global experiences, where I think more than anything, the openness to new ideas comes in, right? We should not be closed in our mindset and our thinking.
So this question is straight from heart. Uh, you are very optimistic about India,
Yeah.
proud Indian. So what's your thought process, future opportunities in India across all industries?
Again, because of the fact that we are a young nation, 77 years old only, um, now, and also the highest population in the world. So naturally, a lot of growth will keep happening across stratas of society, across sectors. We still haven't reached a stage where the middle India, right? The middle India is a significant amount of our population. At least, let's say 60-70% should be the middle India. How will that happen is when the lower strata of society, the lower population in terms of economics, starts going up into the middle, right? So there is no such other country which has this huge demographic of uh, a different population set and also the youngest population in the world. So I believe fundamentally our growth trajectory looks fine. All the macroeconomic factors are also coming into play. There is no dearth of good capital. Foreign investments will keep coming in. Our domestic consumption is going up, right? Uh, Maybe not at such a rapid pace again because we are a very large country. Now, what people compare it to America and the growth rate, you have to see that America is only 300 million people, right? We are 5 times the size in terms of population.
So you
So
are correct on that part. Uh, like someone mentioned, India को इंडिया का चश्मा से देखना पड़ेगा. We are comparing
एग्जैक्टली सी अब इंडिया और इंडियंस को भी इंडिया के चश्मे
इंडिया
से
का
देखना
चश्मा से
पड़े.
देखना.
So you and me sitting, you are sorry, you are sitting in Bombay, I'm sitting in Delhi NCR, right? Now we think that somebody sitting in a tier 3 tier 4 town Jabalpur, let's say for example, I don't even or deep in heartland of UP or Bihar, we think that person is not developed, they don't have aspirations, or वो बहुत backward होंगे, whoever that or that section of society. It is not so true. See, aspirationally they have the same aspirations, they probably could have the same mind, and it is actually the same as somebody sitting in London or New York will think of the entire country. अरे उनके पास तो कुछ है ही नहीं, वो तो पूरी country backward है, right?
Right,
So
right.
so we have to open up uh, our way of thinking at looking at our own country, right? Uh, and that is where I believe next 10 years, 15 years, and going forward, India will be the centerpiece of global economic growth because a lot of things have to yet happen here, which have happened in the West. अब वहां कोई चीज हो गई, अब see, if there is the Mount Everest, once people have scaled that Mount Everest, they can't go anywhere else. We are still at the very lower part of scaling that Everest. So there is a big journey, and in that big journey, we will keep building the ladder and the steps and everything else around climbing that Mount Everest. And a lot of people will help us. We need support from everybody. We cannot be a closed economy also, right? Uh, and if in that process the whole world invests and then looks at returns also from India, there is no harm on it as long as it is not harming our own economy and interests.
So like you are very optimistic, and so Ramdev Agrawal sir, founder of Motilal, he also mentioned इंडिया में तो अभी आना बाकी है. Like what you said, अभी तो opportunities आना बाकी है इंडिया में. It is we are the start of the beginning.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah, how do you view the balance between taking risks and practicing caution in business and investing?
So there is always a very thin line and very individual plus circumstantial, right? Now financial risks again are circumstantial. If you don't have the money to speculate, whether in business or investing or wherever, right? I mean, how will you do it, right? So then you will naturally become cautious. अगर आपकी जेब में 10 रुपए है खर्च करने के लिए, तो आप naturally cautious होगे, right? And if you have thousands of rupees or money available to you, you will start taking some risks, some rational, some irrational. So there is a very thin line. Now, to take a balanced and holistic approach is feedback mechanism, right? Your internal feedback mechanism, where you take short risks, then see what is the result of taking those risks. If the result is not optimal, then you revise your strategy of whether being cautious or continue to take those risks. And at the same time, you take some long term bets also. Not everything will be short term rewarding, right? So, I mean, there is no fast rule or one size fits all approach to it. Very individual, very circumstantial, but you have to keep building. See, risk is something that you have to keep building by your gut feeling, right? I fundamentally believe in that gut feeling. We all have an insight uh, into how things will shape up. Sometimes we play by that insight and sometimes we don't, right? If you believe in it yourself, whatever that opportunity is, then definitely you should take that risk, right? If your circumstances allow you, and not many people are involved in the eventuality that your risk will not play out positively, right? So there is a 10% chance of succeeding at something, whether it is an investment or a business or something. Now you look at, if that 10% is not achieved, is it only